Hello and welcome to the Ministry of Miniatures, and today we've got a very special video. This is the second in our series of Bolt Acttion basic training, and this is our boot camp. So we are going to be looking at building an army for the second video in this series. So let's get started. We'll have a quick look at the book and see what armies are available. Okay, so here we are. I've got the main rule book out, and as you can see, there are a variety of armies available. There are 5 main armies. So as you can see here, we'll start with the Germans. It gives you the special rules. So for the Germans themselves, they've got Blitzkrieg, which is a nice little rule for them, which allows them extra abilities as part of their officer training. Another initiative training for the NCOs. Gives them extra skills if their NCO is killed in combat, and someone else will step up. And Hitler's Buzzsaw, which allows them to roll an extra dice when they're firing machine guns, whether it's light machine gun or medium machine gun. The book goes through all the different types of squads and units that are available, and there's quite a few on there. Of note, there is a new German army book that's coming out in the new year, which will give far greater detail around units, vehicles, etc. So second on here, we've got the armies of the United States. So this will cover all the US armies. So as you can see, again, they've got special army rules of fire and maneuver, gyro stablers for their tanks, air superiority, and modern communication. So they all give bonuses as part of combat. And again, it goes through the basic setup of what the US can bring as part of their army. Then next up is Great Britain. So there's lots of different national characteristics which kind of emulate the Commonwealth different armies. So Up and Atom, Blood Curling Charge, and Tough as Old Boots, Rapid Fire and Vengeance. They're all different things the army can do. You choose one of these as part of your army. And then also artillery support as well. So if you do have a artillery observer, they get to fire twice in a game, which is very good. And then again, for the British Army, it goes through all the units that are available, and that includes artillery, mortars, tanks, and vehicles. So quite a nice selection in there, and the British Army will be coming out next year. This book also covers the basics for Soviet Union. So you can see here, there's Army Special Rules, is the Great Patriotic War for Motherland, Not One Step Back, and Mass Batteries. So that gives them some extra abilities. And again, it goes through all the different units, the heavy weapons, artillery, vehicles, and tanks. So there's plenty in there. Also, there is the Imperial Japanese Army, so Death Before Dishonor, the Banzai Charge, and Show Your Loyalty. So lots and lots in the book, and as I say, over the next 12 months these will all be updated to reflect the new army rules, and to give some further details around what the armies can actually do with some extra units, and much more to go with. So there we go. That is the armies that are available in the main rule book, and I am now going to talk through building up your own army. Okay, so when you first build your army, and here I've got the US Army, you need to start off with your main officer. That can be a single guy, or he can be an officer with 2 assistants. Here I've just given 1 assistant. And then you have 2 rifle squads. These can comprise of an NCO and 4 guys, or it can be up to, depending on the army and the nation, you can have sort of 12 people, but generally it's around 10 in each rifle squad. So by having 2 squads and an NCO in each of those, as well as the officer, that creates the very basic rifle platoon. Now, the armies are made up of different types of platoons, so the one you always must have is a rifle platoon. So here we are, a basic army, which is a very much starter of the officer and 2 rifle sections, which makes a rifle platoon. So that is the basic starter for an army, but actually you can expand that with additional units as part of the rifle platoon. So if you wanted to, you could add another rifle section, or actually indeed you could add 2 rifle sections, so you could have quite a sizable infantry force as part of your rifle platoon. Now once you've got your rifle platoon, there are other options you can have. So some of the things that you can take as part of that rifle platoon is anti-tank. So you're allowed 1 option of an anti-tank. So with the Americans, that would be a bazooka. So as you can see here, one of the options is to take one of those. You can take a sniper team. You can also take a light mortar. And you can take an observer, whether that's artillery or in fact an air observer. So each of those can either call in an artillery barrage or it can call in an aircraft. And on top of that, you can also have a medic. So that's your basic rifle platoon made up there, which each unit, depending on what weapons you give them and what experience level you give them and the amount of troops, will have a point value. So this will add up in points. So one of the other things you can do as well is give your troops transport. So if we go back to the basic infantry platoon, you can actually equip each of the units with a form of transport. So here you can see we've given them 2 trucks and a half truck, just so they've got the maneuverability. And actually, if you were just to take that platoon, the rifle platoon, that then allows you the options of creating a variety of different platoons. And these include heavy weapons platoon, artillery platoon, armoured vehicle platoon, a reconnaissance platoon and an engineers platoon. So once you've got this rifle section, an option could be, for example, to take these troops as a reconnaissance platoon. And what you could do is give them the vehicles, which if they don't have the recce rule, you would give them the recce rule. Now, because we're creating a new platoon, we would also have to give an officer to that platoon. So in this case, if this was going to be a recce platoon, it would have an officer with vehicle and then 2 rifle platoons with vehicles, all of them with recce. So that could potentially be our 2nd platoon. So if we go back to the initial rifle platoon, as you can see there, we can give them transport and we could move the transport around as well so that we could put bazooka or a sniper team in the transport. With the recce team, we can also, and it's the same with the rifle team as well, for the transport, and quite a good option, is to give the troops half tracks. So as you can see here, there are different half tracks available for the different armies, but that gives a bit of extra armour and a bit of extra firepower. So these American half tracks can have medium machine guns on the side and a 360 heavy machine gun on the front, which just has a bit of extra firepower. So potentially this could be your mobile US infantry army, consisting of a rifle platoon with vehicles and a recon vehicle, recce platoon, which will allow you the mobility and firepower that the Americans were famous for. So let's see what we could add to it next. Okay, so looking back at the rifle platoon is a must-have. You must always have a rifle platoon. But once you do have a rifle platoon, that opens up the opportunity for other platoons. So we've already seen the recce platoon. Let's have a look at heavy weapons. Okay, so with the heavy weapons, you can see here at the front, each new platoon has to have an officer. So there is an officer. He can have up to 2 guys with him if you want. Here it's just an officer on his own. But this also then opens up the opportunity to have 3 medium machine guns or heavy machine guns. So as you see, we've got 2 medium machine guns and a heavy machine gun. They give the extra firepower. You can have up to 3 medium mortars. They can also take spotters, so they can have line of sight across the battlefield. And then as you see here, the Americans can take 3 anti-tank bazookas. So it just adds the extra firepower to any American army. You can also give transport to these if you so wish. So if you wanted to, you could have more trucks or half tracks. But this shows you the basics of a heavy weapons platoon. So here you can see an engineer platoon. So always starts off with the officer. Must have an officer for the platoon. And I've got 2 engineer squads. They've both got twin BARs, so you can see the BAR rifles at the back. I've got 2 of those. They can also be equipped with flamethrowers, so I could have 2 sections with flamethrowers attached, and that'd be quite powerful. On the back of that, so the minimum is to have that section set up. Then I would need 2 engineer squads. I can then have an additional 2 engineer squads, and each one of those could have a flamethrower. And then, in addition to that, you can have 3 flamethrowers. So potentially you could have 4 engineer squads with 7 flamethrowers throughout. So 4 in the squads and 3 additional flamethrowers, which makes it quite a formidable force. And again, you could put those in huff tracks to get the mobility, or put them in trucks. But of note, the new German veteran box set that's coming out, each sprue has a flamethrower. So with 6 sprues, you can have 6 flamethrowers. So that gives you pretty much all the flamethrowers you need for that army. So there we go. That is the engineer platoon. So let's have a look at some artillery. Okay, so next up is the artillery, and as you can see here, you can go for howitzers, whether it's small, medium or large. You can go for anti-tank guns, so you can see here quite large anti-tank guns for the US. But the same as I've said before, every time you have a new platoon, you need to have an officer leading that platoon, so it soon adds up. But this is a fairly anti-tank gun heavy artillery platoon. Often people like to have howitzers so they can rein in some shots and dish out extra pins. And also, as we saw in the last video, if you have heavy howitzers, for example, use the 4-inch, so it can be quite devastating if you hit a unit. So there we go, very, very straightforward. Artillery platoon is made up of an officer and 1 artillery piece, and then you can have an additional 3 artillery, anti-aircraft or anti-tank guns. So they are all available, and then you can have transport and tow per unit, so you could bring in tows for each of those. And especially if you're looking at some of the larger anti-tank or howitzers, they may need tows to actually move them around and tow them across the battlefield, so just bear that in mind. Right, so let's move on to the next platoon, which is going to be the armoured platoon. Okay, so with the armoured platoon, there are lots of options. You need to bring at least 1 vehicle, which is your command vehicle. So some vehicles have the command vehicle option with them, so you must take that as the command vehicle. And then if you don't, you then have to pay the extra points to nominate for 10 points a vehicle that's going to be your command vehicle. And then the second vehicle, in this instance a tank, would be the minimum requirements. So once you've got your command vehicle and your second vehicle, you then can have up to an additional 3 vehicles. So you could have your command vehicle plus your 1 and an additional 3. So as you can see here, you could have quite a few tanks. I've put a few more on here just because I wanted to show the variety of vehicles you could have, starting from this Greyhound, quite small and nippy but quite good. Then there's a Stuart, and then it goes on through the Sherman and then onto the tank destroyers. So lots of different options available depending on how many points you want to play and what type of battle you're having with your friends, or if you're in a tournament. So there are lots of options available, but that is essentially an armoured platoon. So as you can see, here we have a huge American army. It's a portion of my army that I've got, but it shows off quite nicely how the different platoons work, whether it's the basic infantry platoon or whether it's a recce platoon, heavy weapons, armoured, artillery, or engineers. So there's lots and lots of options available, and you can make more than you wanted. Just one thing of note, if you wanted to run 2 tank platoons or 2 engineer platoons, you'd need to have 2 rifle platoons, but you could have an officer and 2 5-man rifle teams as part of your rifle platoon, and you could do that twice. You just have 2 officers and 2 lots of 5 men. Just do that, so you've got the 2 rifle platoons that then allow you to have 2 engineers or 2 rookies, or 2 heavy weapons, depending on what you wanted to go for. Now, one final thing I wanted to cover, which is really important, is the company commander. So he sits separately, and once you've got your rifle platoon, you can get a company commander, and he is a higher level officer. And during the game, there may be occasions when you need to get men moving and you guys snap to order, or if you need to take a morale check because you've been hit or you're trying to give an order dice to someone, his ability allows more troops and more units to move, and he is able to use his abilities to better influence their ability to move. So for example, if your rifle squad had 4 pins, they would be less likely to move. But with him, within an area of 12 inches, he would be able to give a +4, basically negating those 4 pins. And they're much more likely to pass their order check and progress into battle. So for me, as a little tip, that is a must-have for any army. So there we go, all the different options that are available as platoons within Bolt Acttion. But how do you work out your points and your armies? Now, there are a couple of options. You can get a pen and paper, get the rules and write out what you want to take and add up the points. There's also online, I'll put the link below, Easy Army. It's a free resource online which allows you to put details in. You can slowly build up your platoons and your figures, and it'll tell you the points, and you can print that out. But what I would really highly recommend is Warlord app. So again, I'll put a link below. I currently use this. It is very, very good. You are able to build your platoons. It can tell you all of the rules, so you can have details around special rules, unit special rules, and it builds your army really, really nicely within the app. It builds your army really, really nicely within the app. It's a very nice, when you print it off, the detail and the formatting is very good as well. So actually it's really clear and legible, and it allows you to quite easily and clearly see what your army looks like, how many points you got, and it's also tournament friendly. So if you were to send it off and show if you're going to a tournament, it would be accepted, but it's easily accessible to have with you wherever you go. And currently Warlord are doing a deal, so that I think it's £20 for the year, and if you do, you get a free £10 Warlord voucher to use online with your next purchase. So essentially £10 for the year. So there we go, that's my handy hint. Either use Easy Army or the Warlord app, and it's very, very good to use. Let me know what you think. What army will you be taking? What platoons do you think work and what don't? Hopefully you like this. If you do, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment below. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. It really helps the channel and helps us know that we're doing the right thing. And see you all again soon.